Hey there, it's Jordan with Status Coup Live. Final night of the Democratic National Convention Theater. It's been better than Broadway. Oprah was out there last night. Oh, my Lord, was that a speech, huh? And of course, the vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, brought down the House, and his son, very tearful son, last night. But outside, there continues in reality to be a massive genocide going on that the United States is funding. And the police are beating the heads and skulls of the youth in the streets of Chicago, pro-Palestinian allies, Arab Americans who are out there just trying to stop the genocide and the killings. And the Democratic Party, which is out there crowing about freedom all week, freedom is their message. Well, they are actively blocking any member of the uncommitted movement, any pro-Palestinian voices, any Arab Americans from getting on the stage at the DNC. If you haven't seen, last night, overnight, there was a massive sit-in overnight where members of the uncommitted movement participated in a sit-in to basically beg and protest the fact that they can't even get a speaker on stage. By the way, the Democratic Party had a member of a family who, an Israeli family of one of the hostages on stage. Nothing wrong with that. But even that Israeli family whose child was taken hostage, they said that the Democratic Party should allow a Palestinian voice on stage. So we're definitely going to talk about that after this broadcast, which, by the way, smash the like button, share this stream everywhere. Share it, smash the like button. We are going to have Dr. Cornel West at the end, and he's going to reveal that apparently some Democrats have been trying to get him to drop out of the race this week at the DNC. And boy, have they been dangling a bunch of goodies to get him to drop out, including a potential spot role as high as cabinet in a Harris administration and some financial incentives to drop out. How about that for democracy? We also are going to have Dr. Richard Wolff, economist, proud socialist, to kind of do fact or fiction. Is this economy really so strong? Are we really so free? So we'll have him soon. We're going to have investigative journalist Greg Palast, who has done incredible work on voter suppression, on the election fraud that's actually happening in America by Republicans mostly. So he's got a new film we're going to talk about. We're also going to have a member from the Teamsters. Labor is obviously resurging in this country, so we're going to have a Teamsters member. We're also going to start soon with Bhaskar Sunkara from the President of the Nation to react to a lot of what we're talking about, the basic blocking of pro-Palestinian voices at the DNC. A lot of moving parts here, and we're definitely need some comedic relief. It's been very, very, very depressing these last few months. It's been very depressing to be in America for years, actually. So we need some comedic relief. So Ron Placone, Helen Hong, two amazing comedians, they are going to riff off of the best and worst moments, not just from the DNC, but the RNC. So I'm looking forward to that. You know Ron, and I'm excited to have Helen on. So buckle up. We got 2 hours of great guests. And then right after that, we're going back on the ground. The other night, John Farina was live from the day to the night for about 10 hours. He'll be on the ground in the streets of Chicago. I hate to say it, but I don't think it's going to be pretty tonight as Kamala Harris accepts the nomination and gives her primetime speech. My expectation is some real ugly violence, not by the protesters, by the police. We will be on the ground capturing it all. That will be right after this broadcast, so you won't even have to go anywhere. This stream will go right into that. I'm going to ask you throughout this show, please, if you actually taken the glasses, you could see my bags. I didn't sleep because my daughter was up at 3 a.m. screaming. If you support real independent, keyword independent, we have no money from the big banks, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex, the Democratic donors that are atop the United Center right now in their VIP suites. Certainly the Republican donors. We don't take their money. Our funding, so we could be on the ground. We have covered over 70 protests, over 70 ceasefire protests in New York City, in LA, in DC, now in Chicago. It's expensive. but it's righteous, and we need your help. We've gotten about 30 new paying members so far this week. We're looking for hundreds. So obviously we have a lot of work to do. If you have $5 a month, that's 16 cents a day. Sign up today, tonight, right now, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. I want to start with an interview I did with the president of the nation, one of the oldest progressive magazines in America, Bhaskar Sunkara. He's out at the DNC in Chicago. We talked about essentially the Democrats basically saying, yeah, shut up and vote for us to Arab Americans. We also talked about, is there any actual policy, progressive policy at this thing? Let's take a look at our conversation. Hey, it's Jordan. I am delighted to be joined by Bhaskar Sunkara. You are president of the nation, founding editor of Jacobin. You're in Chicago right now, where it's hard to keep up. I wish I could be there, but unfortunately I didn't have childcare at the moment. But we do have John on the ground for us covering protests. I wanted to start, I mean, contrary to what I believe is theater going on inside, there's a lot of pain, desperation, anger going on outside. And now I think the big story, this could change by tonight. We're recording this Thursday morning. The Democratic Party, the DNC, has apparently decided not to allow any members of the uncommitted movement, pro-Palestinian voices or Palestinian American voices to speak. They did allow family members of one of the Israeli hostages to speak. I do believe that family member actually expressed that they believe a Palestinian should be able to speak. But they held a sit-in last night. Ilhan Omar joined them. Congresswoman Summer Lee joined them. AOC FaceTimed with them. But uncommitted members were out there all night sitting in. And all they're asking really is to speak, to have representation, just like the family member of the Israeli hostages that spoke. Just want to play this clip. This is from this morning, a press conference Uncommitted did, and get your reaction.
We've asked for this for about 2 months. We've submitted names. Our understanding is senators and members of Congress have submitted names. Iman Jode, Colorado State Representative, Illinois State Representative Abdel Nasser Rashid, Georgia State Representative Ruah Rahman, Virginia Delegate Sam Rasool, Hala Hijazi. Those elected officials have also submitted names of family members of Americans who've lost families in Gaza. Members of Congress have submitted names in addition to those names. It shouldn't be this hard.
So obviously Waleed there got emotional, talking about literally they submitted elected officials' names on the state level who are Palestinian, and the Democratic Party has said no. You know, I don't want to compare 2016 and the treatment of the Bernie delegates in Philadelphia to a genocide. But this does kind of remind me a little bit. I'm sure you remember when they would not allow Nina Turner to introduce Bernie Sanders. And obviously there was a walkout of Bernie delegates. In general, they treated Bernie delegates pretty poorly, I would say, in Philadelphia. Obviously, that is not comparable to why these people want to be heard. But what could the Democratic Party be thinking other than perhaps their donors do not want a Palestinian American voice on stage? Because this is not just morally wrong, I think, but politically very, very poor decision making.
Well, Jordan, let me answer your question directly, but with the caveat that, you know, of course, I think there should be a Palestinian speaker. Immediately stop arms to Israel and force Israel to commit to a ceasefire by any means necessary, including, you know, a no-fly zone. You know, that's my own personal belief. I think it's gotten to such an extreme that U.S. action actively supporting Israel makes it complicit. And what we actually need is U.S. action actively preventing Israel at this point from being able to continue what it's doing. But diving into the mind of a Democratic Party bureaucrat is not normally something that I like to do, but I imagine they want to reduce the salience of this issue. They know that the fact that this has happened on Biden's watch, that Biden has been complicit with Netanyahu's policies. He's been, on the one hand, voicing his discomfort with various aspects of the Israeli actions, but on the other hand, not doing anything to stop it or to pressure Israel. I think they want to reduce in their parlance, the salience of the issue. I don't think they want a big focus in either direction on Israel, Palestine. I think it's been telling that even the speakers, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz and others that you would expect a lot of harping about Israel and its right to defend itself, to focus largely on domestic issues. They had two family members of a hostage speak. That speech, I would say, was broadly framed in humanistic terms. I didn't find much objectionable in the speech. There was, the evasion. There was no direct call for a ceasefire. It was very much a hope for peace and understanding and whatever. And also, I'm not going to blame them for how they're framing this. Obviously they're very personally invested in this, and obviously, a wrong has been committed against their family. But I think among most Democratic Party leaders, they just want the issue to go away. But that's why it's great that there's the uncommitted movement, that there's this battle going on outside the DNC and within the DNC to make sure that this issue can't just be wiped away. They can't just pretend that it isn't happening. They can't pretend that it isn't happening with U.S. arms and support.
And broader than just this issue, which is the most important thing. I mean, as we speak, there are people being bombed in Gaza and being killed. But I look at it, I'm on the older end of the millennial scale, but I believe they're potentially losing a generation of young people by these actions, not just not allowing, a speaker, but just basically trying to hide this. I mean, we saw what happened on Monday when some delegates tried to, did hold up a sign during Biden's speech. It was pulled away. Biden has been kind of giving lip service for 10 months. Kamala Harris expresses more sympathy, but no policy change. I mean, I've traveled the country. I've covered 2016, 2020. I've spoken with thousands of young people. And I think potentially this could alienate them from the Democratic Party, moving forward. Not just that they're not changing the policy, but the treatment and the way the Democratic Party is basically, like you said, trying to kind of hide this. Yeah,
I mean, I think that luckily for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris is much more of a blank slate. People are able to project onto her the views that they have. I do think there's a little bit of identitarian deference that might explain some of the reduced, diminished crowd sizes. I think a lot of ordinary progressive Democrats who are outraged by what's going on in Gaza might not want to protest the first woman president, the first Black woman president, which I think is unfortunate. But I do think there's the feeling, much more so than when I would talk to people during when Biden was still the nominee, and I would talk to people and I hear over and over again, I can't bring myself to vote for a Democrat. Completely understandable. And there was a worry that in certain states, like Michigan, for instance, there would be enough voters that it might actually make the race very narrow, it might actually tip the scale, and the Democrats would really be shooting themselves in the foot in a real politique way. I think that this is perhaps less the case now that Harris has a strategic ambiguity towards anything the Biden administration is doing. If it's popular, she was right there in the room leading it. If it's unpopular, then she didn't really know what was going on, and she has different views, even though her record at this point has been as an extremely pro-Israel Democratic Party establishment politician in that regard, in regard of foreign policy, to the extent she's ever cared or talked about these issues. So I'm both pessimistic that we're going to see a radical change under Harris. Maybe there'll be a slight improvement just because if Harris is an average Democrat and Biden's a worse than average Democrat in this issue, maybe we'll return to the mean. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to hurt them that much. And I say unfortunately, not because I want the Democrats to lose and I want Trump to win in November, but because I actually think that the pressure and the threat of losing an election and also having your legacy tarnished actually might have been more of a spur to change than what we're going to see. And you saw even with Biden's speech, he hedged this comment, but he surprised a lot of people when he said the protesters outside have a point. Obviously, part of that is him, or most of it might be him trying to diffuse the protests and respond to them. But also, I think he's worried about his legacy. I think he knows that his administration, for its meager but real domestic achievements, and for the significant act of withdrawing from Afghanistan, I think a lot of progressives were ready to applaud him at the time the establishment was turning on him for that decision. We were applauding him for that decision. Now, I think he's worried that his whole legacy is going to be defined by Gaza and his deference to the Israeli state and his deference to Netanyahu.
That was Bhaskar Sunkara. We will have the full interview in the coming days. I want to give shout outs to our new Status Coup members. We got a bunch of them so far today. Luminita, I hope I pronounced that right. Donna, Kevin, Gerald, Kathleen, Michelle, and Brian. So that's about 7 or 8 new paying members. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to cover what the corporate media is covering up. We're trying to stay on the ground. Like I said, we will be directly after this show at 8 o'clock Eastern. We'll be back on the ground covering protests. And our John Farina on the ground, I talked to him earlier. He said, I'm probably going to be live till 2 a.m. And I sure hope I stay hydrated and not arrested, because the police are not screwing around there. It is literally capitalism's army out there cracking skulls, tasing people, and we've been showing it all. Please, 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 before we move on to our next topic, consider signing up during this show. Statuscoup.com/join. I'll continue shouting you guys out as new members sign up. As a reminder, if you become a Status Coup member, we do a monthly call with our members, a video call. It's like a Zoom type program. So you get perks as a member, but sign up and I'll continue shouting you out. Real quick before we do a little comedic relief with Ron Placone and Helen Hong, let's take a look at Status Coup's on the ground work.
We can't use it to cook with. We can't drink it. So since I've been here for a year, and I've always boiled the water since I've been here, and I've never don't brush my teeth with it.
But this is a message. This is a message for all the communities across the country that's going through the same thing we're going through right now. I'm gonna address y'all directly. A statement of defiance needs to be had for those that are being displaced and put out in these streets. I'm addressing y'all directly right now. Stand up, because if you don't, you lose. We lose as a people if you do nothing.
And now it seems like Akron is hunting its own homeless. It doesn't matter where we go. If we put up a tent, they're there tearing it down. The little bit of personal belongings and memories that we had, Akron has bulldozed over.
Yet we're told, the news tells us the economy is coming back. And
show me where the economy is coming back, and I'll show you a population in the homeless camps that will list.
So that was just some of our on the ground work. Again, statuscoup.com/join. I don't know about you. I need to laugh. I know it's not laughing times, but we all need a break sometimes. Thank the Lord, if there is one. Joining me now, Ron Placone. You know him, returning champion, guest host of Status Coup frequently, host of the Ron Placone Show, and Helen Hong, another great comedian, infamously, she should have been the star, I say, of HBO's Silicon Valley. I remember now watching that, and I love your work. Ron, Helen, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. I'm no comedian, so I'm going to kind of just toss to our clips here and let you take over. We want to build up to the DNC. I don't want to go full throttle on Oprah yet. So we're going to start with, shall we say, some sewer moments from the RNC. Let's take a look, and you guys can talk over it. Pause. Do your thing.
Toe in the dirty water first.
We've heard about villains and their victims. I've talked a lot about that, but let me tell you about the future. President Trump's vision is so simple and yet so powerful. We're done.
It's simple. I don't know about
catering
powerful.
To Wall Street. We'll commit to the working man. We're done importing foreign labor. We're going to fight for American citizens and their good jobs and their good wages. We're going to build factories again. Put people to work making real products for American families made with the hands of American workers. Together.
He's just putting words together that people like. Factories. You like those, right?
We will protect the wages of American workers and stop the Chinese Communist Party from building their middle class on the backs of American citizens.
I'm wearing a bandage on my right ear and standing in solidarity with President Trump.
There why does there you are, Helen. Why does JD Vance always look like he just got done telling a judge she told me she was 18? That's just the look. He looks like he's about to tell me that I'm misinterpreting Jordan Peterson. Like he looks like he's about to. He's a great philosopher of our time.
Exactly
you just don't get it.
Exactly. What was I supposed to check her ID? Come on. She had boobs. But I love also this whole like the napkin on the ear. Everybody was like, "I need a do you have a white napkin and some scotch tape for my ear?" Like I love that this is the new this is our emblem.
I thought it was a tea bag at first. I thought it was a Tea Party thing. I was like, oh, I thought the bag and the Tea Party were quite the same. But no,
they don't have that much forward thought. Come on, it's not that would actually have some sort of like deeper implication. No, they're like the napkin on the ear.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like an ear bandage.
On my right ear and standing in solidarity with President Trump.
We realized that this was a tragedy that should have never happened.
It was easy to
and we want him to know that we are going through this with him, that we honor him, that we respect him, we're behind him, we're in it for the fight. As they come in, more and more want to wear it.
Right now, taking the same as two-time governor of West
we're like,
Virginia,
we need another option to show the world what doofuses we are than the red hat. We'll go with the napkin on the ear.
Someone's gonna ruin that one guy's day when they tell him, "Hey, if you wear the napkin on the right side, it means you're gay." Did you know that? Did you know that?
I love it. Ear strong. Yep. Ear strong. So the whole thing was, listen, I'm coming to you from Vegas, and I'm a performer in Las Vegas, and a lot of these variety shows are like that. This stuff takes the cake. The RNC beats anything that's going on in Vegas right now for sheer
baby dog joining him on stage tonight.
Hello, everybody.
This is my favorite.
I'm Jim Justice, and I'm from West Virginia. And I absolutely believe with all my soul we've got the greatest people in the world in West Virginia.
Oh, this is my favorite moment. This is like the Charlton Heston moment.
You didn't really expect that, did you?
He's really proud of himself.
With that being said, let me just say
He's really
this.
proud of this.
She makes us smile, and she loves everybody. And how could the message possibly be any more simpler than just that?
Well, let's make him the nominee.
Love and support following the
I think he sounds like he was supposed to be there, but no one told him until the last minute. like 10 minutes before the event, they were like,
the dog
Jim,
was like, what?
Jim, you got to do a thing. Like, I don't have anything prepared. I'm bringing my dog, all right? Because I got nothing.
The dog also looked like he was like, wait, what's happening? Like,
I was asleep in a hotel room. Where are you working in Vegas, by the way? Quick aside. Where are you working?
I'm working at the Comedy Cellar in the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas, and let me tell you, I wish I was at the RNC because I am the DNC because, well, the RNC was funnier. The DNC is sadder, so I guess it's
That's a fair assessment. I mean, yeah, Kid Rock lip syncing to a half full room was pretty freaking funny, and then Hulk Hogan ripping off the shirt, and it looks like he might have soiled himself through that process. Pretty freaking funny.
Amazing.
But
here he is, ear napkin.
There's the guy. There's the
ear napkin. Ear napkin in chief is here. Let's play the tape. Let's play the tape.
At my rally on Saturday, despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. Tragically, the shooter claimed the life of one of our fellow Americans, Corey Comparator. He lost his life selflessly acting as a human shield to protect them from flying bullets. He went right over the top of them and was hit.
What?
He kissed a fire helmet.
What?
Like you do. Like you do.
A man who survived a bullet
there it
that
is.
was intended to eliminate him permanently from our future and from our family. Never.
Donald, I feel like every time Donald Trump speaks now, he looks like he just got in way over his head. Like he just wanted to start a TV network 8 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But he's still having to do this. It's just full mask off now. Like he hit it well during the term, but now it's just he's not even trying. He's just like, I mean, he's just gonna go off. It's really neat. You can get an Amazon Prime delivery in one day. That's what I made that happen. That was.
I love that he couldn't even remember the name of the guy who died, literally trying to protect his life. He's like, Corey. He's like clearly reading it off the teleprompter, like Corey. Is that a C R? How does that you know what? Whatever.
He's the best, Corey. He has all the best letters in his name.
You know, he gave his life in front of the bullets. I don't know. Again, this whole convention was just like, let's just string words together, and people like these certain words, and let's just string them together.
Factories, Patriot Factory,
American
bullets.
Yeah. Okay.
Gun love.
And then here's Cocaine Jr.
But what happened
there he
last
is,
week
the Hulk.
when they took a shot at my hero?
He's struggling through this, I think.
And they tried
This
to
is
kill
not.
the next president of the United States.
He's moving the gold chain. He doesn't want to mess that up.
This was like, how thin of a ply could you make this shirt for him to actually still
My
be
name
able
is
to
Amber Rose. I'm a model and
Oh,
entrepreneur.
Amber Rose was such a disappointment to me. I mean, because, for a minute, can we pause the tape?
But I'm here tonight.
You don't know, Amber Rose, she was this champion of sex positivity, and this was like, she started the slut walk, and she was like, guess what, girl? You can go on with your slut walk, but if you happen to get pregnant, you keeping the baby with them. You gotta keep the baby. You're stuck with the baby, girl.
Do you think after Hulk Hogan ripped open his thing, like a bunch of people called Mike Judge the next day and asked what lottery numbers to play? Like they're just like, Idiocracy came to life. You have a vision. We trust you. Why am I big now? What's happening? Jordan's here.
I was actually like LOLing during that. You lie to people and say LOL. I was actually laughing out loud. So thank you. Moving on to the sadness, including Oprah. We now are in the midst of the Democratic National Theater. It is a multi-million-dollar spectacular. We also had John Legend on stage, among others, Stevie Wonder. So it's been a real spectacle. But there's been.
I will say, as tragic as the DNC is, at least the celebs are better,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That is true.
Are more high quality.
And I'll tell you, I was saying, I mean, forget politics. That Oprah, she can give a speech. I was ready to go, and I wanted a car. I wanted a free car, too. But let's
It'd be funny if she gave away free cars, but only to members of Congress.
Yes.
No one else got one.
And that Hulk Hogan turn, by the way, I was a WWF fan back in the day, and I thought it couldn't get worse than him turning like a bad guy in the WWF, but then he actually went to Trump's RNC, so it did get worse. But I digress. Now I want to turn to this week. This week, I'm going to step aside and let you two riff off of the party of the people.
In quotes.
And let us choose optimism over cynicism, because that's the best of America.
Okay, can we just
And let
pause
us
here?
choose
I just performed in Maui, like on the island of Maui. And I actually have a joke in my act where I reference Oprah Winfrey, how I want to be the Korean Oprah Winfrey. And as soon as I said her name, everybody in the crowd went, boo, boo. Girl, you got no fans in your home turf because you're buying up indigenous land. You're buying up the entire island. You're just as bad as Mark Zuckerberg. And as much as you want to be like, you're a person, you're a woman of the people, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, you get a car. I get an island. I get an island. I get your indigenous island. That's Oprah right now. So I don't know if you still think Oprah is a woman of the people. Good luck to you.
over retribution. Let us choose common sense over nonsense.
He was proud of that one.
Because that's
Common
the best
sense
of
over
America.
nonsense.
Yeah.
It is clever.
He was like,
and let us choose the sweet promise of tomorrow over the bitter return to yesterday. We won't go back. We won't be set back, pushed back, bullied back, kicked back. We're not going back.
Girl.
Let us choose. Let us choose.
I mean,
Truth.
this was the woman who
Let us
like
choose
almost
honor,
single-handedly.
and let us choose joy.
Whoa!
Finds joy.
You know what? Can
in
we pause the
pursuing
tape?
justice.
Like, yeah, it's awesome. Sure, you can choose joy, billionaire Oprah, and it's easy to choose joy. Not so much when you're a Gazan baby being murdered. Not so much if you care about Gazan babies. Choosing joy. Choosing joy is not just like, what? I feel like I'm going to choose joy today. Not so much if you're homeless. Not so much if you're struggling with inflation and can't buy groceries. You know what? I don't need to eat because eggs are $12 a carton. I'm just going to choose joy. Cute Oprah, but
that's the thing.
Live in the real world.
See, that's what the acapella moments are for. You go, Gaza baby, homelessness, and she goes, la 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 la.
Choosing joy, choosing joy. Don't care about dead babies in Gaza. Okay, great.
More. He thought that was going to get a laugh. It didn't, though. There was no context with it. He should have had someone write for him.
Stands up to bullies just like my parents taught me to. She likes to see people do well.
Yeah, he needed one of those
but
giant
hates when they're
applause
treated
signs.
Unfairly. She believes this work requires a basic curiosity and just how people are. Her empathy is her strength.
He thought that was going to get a laugh. It did not. He's.
Over the last decade, Kamala has connected me more deeply to my faith, even though it's not the same. I'm single, and I go to church with her for Easter. Kamala has fought against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate her whole career. She's the one who encouraged me as second gentleman to take up that fight, which is so personal to me.
In Kamala Harris, we have a chance to elect a president who is for the middle class because she is from the middle class. She understands the urgency of rent checks and groceries and prescriptions. She is as committed to our reproductive and civil rights
gotta tell
as
you.
she is to taking on corporate greed. And she is working
can we pause
tirelessly.
and look up the word tirelessly? Because I think I'm sorry, tire whatly?
Does tireless mean not at all?
Does
Did I miss
tirelessly
something?
mean maybe 4 minutes in the last year? Because I don't find that tired. That's not that tireless. This AOC speech, honestly, was the most depressing moment for me because, she was a squad leader. She was like, she was our girl. She was like, we had like someone who was a truth teller, and then she just somehow sold out. for this whole thing, and to see a member of the squad, and I think other members of the squad are calling her out.
Do you think Omar's thing was kind of subtly pointed at her? I know that people are split on whether it was or not.
I don't know if it was that subtle. I think she was like, "Girl, what you doing, girl?" I think that's how subtle it was. Girl, AOC, what you doing? Yeah, because AOC is such a compelling speaker, and her story is so compelling, and her history is so compelling, and she's just such a great motivator. But for her to be a shill for Kamala and to say,
yeah, well, and before that, it was for Biden. Like, she's just whoever's at the top. She's just all on board now, and it's
squad on squad violence. That's what's happening right now.
Are we going back?
I'm tired of hearing about how a 2-bit union buster thinks of himself as more of a patriot than the woman who fights every single day.
I think the more she uses her arm. Wait, pause it for a second. I don't want to miss a moment of this. I think the more AOC uses her arms, the more she's not convinced by what she's saying.
I agree.
The more it's like she's phoned this in. This is a play. The more she uses her arms.
This is something we do in stand-up comedy. Like, if I've written a new bit and I don't believe in it, I'm selling it.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this is a joke. You guys see the joke of it? The joke.
These are the punchlines I'm not sure of.
Oh God.
All right, time for Hillary.
Here we are.
Justice from chaos and corruption. I see the freedom to look our children in the eye and say, in America, you can go as far as your hard work and talent will take you.
Really?
And mean it. And you know what?
Unless you're homeless.
On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris raising her hand and taking the oath of office as our 47th president of the United States.
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville.
That's why. Okay.
In August of 2017, extremists coming out of the woods, carrying torches, their veins bulging from their necks, carrying Nazi swastikas, and chanting the same exact anti-Semitic bile that was heard in Germany in the early 30s. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists,
oh God,
the Ku Klux Klan, so emboldened by a president then in the White House that they saw as an ally. They didn't even bother to wear their hoods.
He's really milking this. He's like,
Hate
this
was
is
on the
something
march
people
in
can't get
America.
on before.
Calls America
part
a
of me
failing
thought
nation.
Once he stopped,
No, I'm serious.
part of me hoped,
But think about it.
part of me was hoping that once he was not going to run again, he'd be like, okay, you know what? I don't need big Jewish donors anymore. And maybe then we can actually get real and tackle Palestine. But no, he's still dog whistling the anti-Semitism and the Nazis. And then even in his hazy old man fog, he's like, and the Jewish money. I love it.
He's got to milk the things that people will like he doesn't want to bring that other stuff up. So he's like Charlottesville, and nobody likes that. And he's like neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan. They're like, nobody likes that. All right. When I saw that, that's why I decided to run. That was it. That was the decider for me.
Yeah, it wasn't like a 70-year career plan.
Right.
It wasn't what I had planned all along for literally 70 years, my entire white privileged life.
There weren't many failed attempts, and this was the last chance to fail up.
He publicly says to the whole world, I'm going to say something outrageous. I know more foreign leaders by their first names and know them well than anybody live. Just
You
because
don't
I'm so
remember
damn
anyone's
old.
first name.
January 6th was a perilous moment for our democracy.
God.
Never before had
There
a
she is.
president of the United States so brazenly assaulted the
I bet
bedrock
that
of our
necklace is worth
democracy,
more than
so gleefully
everything I own.
embraced political
Multiplied
violence, so
by
willfully
100. Yeah.
betrayed his
That
oath of
suit
office.
is Taylor.
Let us not forget who assaulted democracy on January 6th. He did.
Did they say anything about what they're going to do for people?
But let us not forget who saved democracy that day.
Can we pause for a second?
We did.
Only personal vanity. Age of everyone who's spoken. Like, let's count up the ages of everyone who's spoken so far at the DNC, and it's like ancient white person after ancient white person after ancient white person is like, I got the answer, and I'm gonna tell you how to vote. And this is, yeah.
January 6th, am I right?
Grandpa, do what Grandpa's telling you, and just do it the way we did it.
They didn't wear their hoods. They were just hoodless, and their necks were big, like the hair on my legs, and their
Oh God, Bill.
Anyway, you know the thing
is, I'm still younger than Donald Trump. Look, you got to give him. He's a good actor. With a straight face, he cited as evidence of the respect that existed for us when he was there.
Old Bill Clinton is just creepy.
Of North Korea,
I mean, he was always creepy,
Russia.
but old Bill Clinton is
signal
really, really creepy.
to other countries,
Like old Bill.
Any
whether they agree with you or not, what are they
coolness about
supposed
him
to
has
make
faded away.
to these endless
No
tributes
Riz anymore.
to the late
No,
great
old Bill
Hannibal
Clinton
Lecter?
is like old rockabilly musician who got canceled because he dated his 13-year-old cousin. Like that's old Bill Clinton. That's the vibe he gives. It's super creepy.
I will be contacting both of your agents for a weekly spot where we just run Fox News and Rachel Maddow clips and get your reaction, because that was comedic. That was comedic gold. Unbelievable.
I out of all those videos, I still say let's make the dog the nominee for both on both sides. I will vote for the English Bulldog over everyone else who spoke on stage.
And you know what? The English Bulldog is not voting Republican. That's the other ironic thing.
And by the way,
they made me be here.
Governor Jim Justice, his dog is paid more taxes than him, who has dodged $500 million in taxes. And I should also mention AOC might want to look up middle class, because Kamala Harris grew up in Berkeley with two parents, professors, professors with graduate degrees. Not knocking it, but not exactly middle class.
What do you mean?
She was doing a lot of like, I believe it. I'm believing it.
Helen, ladies first, tell people where they can find where you're coming next and where they can find your act.
Please follow me on all the socials at Funny Helen Hong, because there's some other woman named Helen Hong who has all my handles, and I haven't found her yet. So at Funny Helen Hong, and you can find my tour dates there, and come see me. And we need to laugh, because to keep from crying. There's a lot of crying.
And if people will fund Status Coup as paying members, I will go to investigate what Oprah is doing in Maui. That sounds scandalous.
Nice.
So I will get on that.
She has no fans on Maui, I can tell you for a fact.
Ron Placone, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can follow me at Ron Placone on all socials. I have a movie coming out soon called Left at Wall. Our last screening is September 21st in London. So if you're in London, grab tickets for that. I'll be there September 21st, London. And the movie should be out everywhere soon. So ronplacone.com for tickets and everything. And Helen, I'm a big fan. Good to cross paths with you again. And hope we do again soon.
Thank you. Come on.
Thanks, guys.
Let's seriously get back on track with this all of this bullshit.
Put that in your bumper sticker. All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Keep smashing the like button. Share this live stream so we can get it out to more people. And please, please, please. This took a lot of work. We got Amzai behind the camera helping us produce. Jay Ponti doing a great job producing. Colin. So please, please support us. Reminder, we'll be on the ground in about an hour and 15 minutes. Covering protests in Chicago, so don't go anywhere. And please, please, please sign up as a paying Status Coup member. Sign up as a paying Status Coup member, statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for a burnt cup of Starbucks coffee a month. That's $5 a month, 16 cents a day. Real quick, let's show you a little bit more of our reporting. And then we're going to have a great interview that Jay Ponti did with professor and economist Richard Wolff. You hear so much about how wonderful this economy is. We'll get to the bottom of that right after this break.
Is being somewhere where mainstream media is not.
Jordan Chariton live, status coup in Ottumwa, Iowa, in front of Winter Park High School, Buffalo, New York. Here in Louisville, Kentucky. Here in Flint, Michigan.
This was fire. This was absolute fire.
I don't know if Manchin is delusional or if he thinks we're that stupid.
They ran the water for 10 minutes and they told her, oh, the water's fine. But meanwhile, the baby's got blisters everywhere.
When I turn my water on now, you can smell it.
I cry every day because my baby's skin break out. And I feel like that's just not right. They shouldn't have to go through this.
I smell the water as of 6 months ago. It smells like shit. But they say it's safe. They say it's clean.
You intentionally went to her house illegally to serve that illegal warrant. You intentionally murdered her, period.
So keep signing up. We'll give you a shout out for every new member that signs up. Joining me now, Jay Ponti. He's the author of Be the Revolution, a veteran of the class war, as his hat says. He's definitely helped big time producing this 3-day extravaganza. He actually interviewed Richard Wolff, which we're about to show. But Jay, tell us more about the work you're doing now and everything you've kind of done over the last decade.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Great to be back on. And it's been amazing to create this broadcast with you. Just coming back from the DNC. And I think it's really relevant because this book covers everything from Occupy through both Bernie Sanders campaigns. Talks about the dog and pony show of 2016. You were there. That's where you and I met with Bernie's Avengers. And, Bernie 2020, Standing Rock, tells people how they can run divestment campaigns, and all the way up to the rebirth of American labor. And it's all really, really relevant because it's our story. It's the story of the progressive movement. It's going to take you back and give you all the greatest hits from all the fuckery, all the Democratic Party fuckery. But it also shows about there's a chapter about we mapped out who was behind QAnon, and I actually got recruited for the insurrection, which was wild. I did not participate, but I think the left also needs to think about how dangerous this neo-fascist movement is, as well as all of the valid criticism about Gaza and how they're just leaving working people behind. And that Amber Rose clip is scary because the Republicans are talking to the base and the Democrats are pretending. So they put us in this impossible position where the neoliberals create the conditions that give rise to fascism. And then they say, you have to elect somebody who we know is not going to do anything about it, because otherwise we're going to get fascists. So we're in this impossible cycle. And I think, yes, sir.
And I think also, I'm almost done with your book. I've been reading it. I think what's good about it, and check out betherevolution.org.
Betherevolution.org.
Yeah. Why it's really important. .us. Sorry, it's on the screen. None of us have slept, so excuse us. Why it's so important is the left is fractured, but reading it kind of takes me back from Occupy, which is when I first got involved. I went down in New York City, to Bernie 2016 to Standing Rock. It kind of reminds me that it's not all lost, and it was not all for naught, and we actually have won some victories, even though right now it doesn't feel that way. And your book is kind of like a connective tissue between all of those things: Occupy, Bernie at 1.0, Bernie 2.0, Standing Rock. So I encourage people, definitely check it out, betherevolution.us.
It's really relevant now because people think that there's no point, but you can see that there is one long lineage from Occupy right up to the rebirth of the present moment. The Biden administration was woefully inadequate for addressing the climate crisis. They greenlighted 6,000 new pipelines, and obviously the genocide in Gaza, unacceptable. And the world we lived in is absolutely fundamentally changed. And we're going to be going on tour to do trainings for young people so that we can help mobilizing these communities just in case we have a fascist. Either way, whether it's a fascist a neo-fascist presidency or to fight the neoliberals for climate. We're going to have to fight either way. And yeah, that's what we're up to. But it's been great doing this with you.
And why don't you tee up our next interview, because you did it with Professor Richard Wolff. What are people going to see in the next couple minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following Richard Wolff for a long time, and we talked a little bit about the French elections, how the French left worked as a coalition, whereas the American left tends to be very fractured in silos. They won. The French left won with Mélenchon, so that's really significant. And Richard Wolff is always just amazing at breaking down these difficult concepts into really digestible, into ways people can understand.
Awesome. Let's take a look. Thank you for your help, by the way. He helped produce this extravaganza over the last 3 days. Did a great job.
We love what you do. Everybody sign up. We got to keep status quo alive. I mean,
absolutely.
You think like Jordan's not, buying yachts with any, I mean, it's really, a labor of love. And,
you have no idea.
Really $5 bucks.
I'm going to write a book just on how much money of my own personal savings I've drained to keep the light.
And we got to talk about your book later on too, so stay tuned about Jordan's book, We the Poisoned.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a look at Jay's conversation with professor and economist Richard Wolff.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the People's Mic, 3-day unfiltered coverage covering the Democratic National Convention. We've got an amazing list of people speaking, but today I am very honored to bring on Richard Wolff, a renowned economist and professor. He is a professor at the New School in New York City. And his latest book, Understanding Capitalism, is a vital resource for anyone interested in understanding systemic change and the flaws of capitalism. And he's just been an amazing person to sort of give commentary and elucidate some difficult concepts for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Richard Wolff.
Thank you very, very much. That's a very kind introduction.
Great. So, Richard, you must be really excited. I heard recently Larry Kudlow on Fox News saying that Kamala Harris was a big government socialist, a California-style socialist, in that she was left to Bernie. So if I understand this correctly, you are a real socialist. So you must be really excited about Kamala Harris, given that she is a real socialist.
Well, I have several things to say in response, and I appreciate your humor. It's what you need, as they used to say, to keep from crying. What that comment shows is the utter disconnection of people, particularly in the Republican Party in this country, from any understanding of what socialism has been in the world and what it is now. It's a level of ignorance that ought to make a person hesitate to say it out loud for fear of what people will think about a person who talks like that, right? Whether the government does something or not is itself a perfectly interesting question. But a whole history of socialism, I'm talking 200 years, shows that there are many socialists for whom whether the government does it or not is not the important issue. It just isn't. If you take a look at Karl Marx, for example, who is in many ways still the great thinker of the socialist tradition, he doesn't write about the government. He doesn't advocate that the government do more or less. He just doesn't. It's not an important issue. There's no book by Karl Marx about the government. There's no plan that something should be done by the government rather than something else. What are you talking about? Where did this come from? Well, the answer is there is a branch of socialism, absolutely. There is a branch that believes that what we need in the world is less private capitalism, and more the state should hire people to do things rather than private entrepreneurs or employers hiring people. There are people who think that's a very important distinction. Okay, and they call themselves socialists. Okay, there's no agency that issues a license as to who can call themselves a socialist or not.
Is that really so they say things like, they're in favor of entitlement expansions and student loan forgiveness and a Green New Deal and tax increases. Is that a socialism?
No. In other words, are there people who call that socialism? Yes, people like Larry Kudlow. And they leave it at that because they don't seem to know that the bulk of the socialist thinking world has been critical of that view. Look, if you really take seriously that having more government intervention in the economy is socialism, then you would have to come to terms with the fact that every single European country has more government intervention in their capitalist economies than we do. Are they all socialist? The people running those societies would fall over laughing if you said so. No, that's not what socialism is, or if to be more accurate, it's what some super moderate socialists might say, but there are a lot of other socialists who say, no, no, no. Whether the government does, I'll give you an example. In France, if you're a new parent, the government provides you with a person who helps you for several months handle the new baby in your household. It's a government service. Just like in France, you get medical insurance from the day you're born to the day you die. Bingo. Mr. Macron, who is the president of France, doesn't think it's a socialist country. Would tell you you're nuts if you say so, but he would defend those particular policies because it would be very dangerous for him politically. I mean, he's on the way out anyway, but even for him, it would be dangerous.
But wait a minute. What's happening here? Why are they saying Kamala and Biden and Obama are socialists? What's going on?
That question is easy. In the United States, the word socialist is a kind of swear word. It's a nasty, it's a pejorative, it's a word designed to make a person say, oh, I don't want that, or oh, that's bad, or oh, that's scary, all of that kind of stuff. So it's just calling names. Mr. Trump is a specialist at name calling. Now it's getting him into trouble. Mr. Kudlow hasn't got that memo yet, so he is busy calling names as if that's a solution. Look, the polls in America show, and they have for years, the majority of people believe that the gap between rich and poor is too big in this country. The majority believe student loans should be relieved. The majority believe most of the things that Mr. Kudlow doesn't. So why does Mr. Kudlow call it socialist? Because he wants people to stop being advocates of, being supportive of those changes. And this is just a bad word to call them. If you get him more excited or put a couple more drinks in him, it'll be they're communists. And if that doesn't do it, they're terrorists. And we'll keep right on going. These are just dismissive words by somebody who, to be honest, he's an economist like me. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's, by the way, an important point. And it's not meant as a personal insult. Mr. Kudlow doesn't know because it isn't taught. I went through all undergraduate, graduate. I have a PhD in economics, blah, blah, blah. No one ever taught me or required me to learn what socialism is, what the varieties of socialism have been in the world and are now. So where would Mr. Kudlow get it? He would have to be interested enough on his own to go out and learn. He hasn't done that. Maybe for good reasons, I don't know.
Well, yeah, it is actually quite hard to navigate Wikipedia. So, to be fair, He would have to go on Google. He'd have to go on Wikipedia. He'd have to look at it himself, and he'd have to look up these words. And I mean, let's give him a little credit. But you mentioned the French election, and I think that's worth talking about in the context. So I'd love to see what your thoughts are on the context of this election. We're in a big election cycle, and often people look to what's happening in the UK or what's happening in Europe or France to see as sort of a barometer for what we might see happening in the US. And as an economist, I'm interested in your thoughts of sort of also not just the party organizing, like with the New Popular Front, and you have this coalition party, in which most Americans have no idea what has happened. But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on this election and how it may be a barometer for what we're seeing either globally or in the US?
Well, I think in different ways, the recent elections, literally, they're only a few weeks in the past, both in Great Britain and in France, are barometers and are among the most important elections in a generation. So Americans should pay attention. Let me focus on the French, but I'd be glad to talk with you about the British as well. And I should explain, my father was born in France. I have spoken French all my life since being a baby. I'm fluent in that language, and I follow the events there. And I have also taught at the University of Paris. The largest political party in the Assemblée, the major parliamentary unit of the French government, the largest single party by far now is the New Popular Front. Its leader is Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Learn the name because he is a socialist, a real one. He's been one all his adult life. He has been active in a number of different political parties, including the one he now sits at the top of, which he helped to organize. He's been a fixture of French politics. The people of France know him very well, his strengths, his weaknesses. He's against capitalism and says so, and always has. And he got more votes, him and his party, than anybody else. They're the number one political. That hasn't been true in France for a long time. His party is a coming together of four smaller parties that decided to unify on the grounds that if they did, you'd get a better sense of how strong left-wing opinion is in France. So here are the four parties. The La France Insoumise, that's his own party, which means France unbowed. That's the first and the largest of the four. Next, the French Green Party, which is a left-leaning Green Party. Number three, the French Socialist Party. And number four, the French Communist Party. Those are the four united in the New Popular Front that is now the largest single bloc in the Assembly, in the Parliament, in the Congress equivalent in France. Let me be a teacher for a moment. If you, my audience in this moment, didn't know that, that tells you not about you, but it tells you about the media you are surrounded with, who have kept this remarkable reality away from you.
Wait a minute. I thought that only happened in Venezuela, countries like Venezuela and Cuba.
No, it happens all over the world, and it happened in France. Let me remind you, it's a civilian government in France. That means the largest political party determining whether or not they use their nuclear weapons is a socialist communist coalition. Wow. Talk about change. Even in England, where you don't have anything like this, where you have something a little bit closer to Republican and Democrat, only there they call it Conservative and Labor Party. Even there, the last election was a complete blowout, throwing the Conservatives out of office and giving the Labor Party an enormous majority. They can pass whatever they want. They're the kind of socialists who thinks if the government does a bit more and makes life a little less harsh, well, that's socialism. Whereas a guy like Mélenchon says, no, no, no. Socialism is a whole new way of organizing an economy that makes every factory, every office, every store into a different experience in terms of the economic system. And it is not merely a question of whether the government does a bit more or the government does a bit less.
Right. So, but is it fair to say that for something to be called a socialism, really, the workers must be owning and controlling the means of production versus, for instance, a social democracy in places like Scandinavia? Like they call Bernie Sanders a socialist. He doesn't shy away from the moniker. But in truth, aren't those still capitalist countries? Aren't they really just capitalist countries with a strong social safety net?
Absolutely. And I would argue, I'm a particular kind of socialist, but I would argue that the definition is what's important here, and Americans don't have enough engagement with the socialist tradition to be aware of the competing definitions. So here's mine. Capitalism is when you organize the production and distribution of goods and services that we all depend on, our food, our clothing, our shelter, everything. If you organize that production so that a small group of people, let's call them the employer, have all the power, make all the key decisions, what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the revenue you get from producing, that's all decided, say, in a modern corporation, by the board of directors. That's 15 people. If it's a big corporation, they can have hundreds of thousands of employees who are kept away from those decisions. Many of you watching or listening, you know when you cross the threshold into your job, you're no longer the decision maker. You are told by someone above you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, when to stop, go home, come back, all the rest. A socialism, for me, stops that. Says, no, 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 that's not democratic. I want a workplace organized, because I actually believe in democracy. I want a workplace organized democratically. One person, one vote. We all get together and decide what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the product when we're finished. That's a democratic community. For me, that's what socialism is.
So wait, so would you take exception to someone calling Kamala Harris a socialist or Barack Obama?
Yes, I think if that's all you... Look, if you said to me, they're the kind of very super moderate socialist who thinks a little more by the government of regulation is social, okay. I mean, you're free to define socialism any way you want, but I would say if you don't do that, if you just use the word socialist, then you're being either ignorant or dishonest. You should be able to say, this is one kind, the way you just did. Bernie is a moderate Scandinavian type socialist. Correct. That's what the word means for him, as it does, say, in Denmark or places like that. But there are lots of places in the world, lots of literature, lots of political organizations for whom that isn't socialism at all. It's a little bit if I said to you the following. The worst dictatorship you can pick in Latin America, I will make the point, see, that's capitalism. Okay, it's not wrong in the sense that employer-employees, what they got in that country. But it's one kind of capitalism, and you would like me to believe, and I do, that there are other kinds that aren't so bad. Socialism has its range of difference too. The only reason a person like, well, the various people who use the word wrongly do it is because they live in a society which doesn't teach that to people, doesn't want them to know about the differences, doesn't want them to debate them, doesn't want to see how they work in one country or another. Let me give you an example. Around Bologna in Italy, one of the richest and most successful parts, Emilia-Romagna in Italy, 40% of their economy is worker co-ops. That is factories, offices, and stores organized democratically, where every decision is made democratically. They don't have boss over workers. They've been doing that for decades. They're very successful. That's how they want it. That's what they mean by socialism. If you're not aware of that, okay. But to not understand that for them, talking about how the government could do more, they would laugh at you. That's got nothing to do. For us, everything is about changing the daily life we live in our workplace, where we go 5 days a week, the best hours of the day. That's socialism, really. Not a question of what a distant government does or doesn't do. In other words, there's a long history and a literature and an experience of these different meanings of socialism. Americans live in a desert where those don't exist, and that allows people to say silly things as if they were real.
According to the last IPCC report, the human race has approximately 8 years to get off of fossil fuels and to stop putting excess carbon into the atmosphere. We just don't have time for today's youth to spend the next decade learning how to build big movements, only to get crushed by the corporate state and then apply those lessons. We will be doing leadership trainings for frontline activists and college kids in cities across America. We hope to share this theory of change and strategies to help local coalitions work in solidarity.
I'm hoping to get out of this training basically just learning how we can work with and put pressure on political leaders to pass climate legislation.
It was beautiful for us to lean into the discomfort together as a collective. We all had our individual angles of wanting to show up and care for the world, but we also showed up for each other in that way by asking questions, being curious, being courageous, and even more than anything else, we get to celebrate each other, which was just a holistic experience of activism. I've really never experienced anything like that before.
I feel less cloudy, a little bit less anxious, definitely empowered.
I really appreciated this workshop and just having a space to be with other people who have a vision for a world that hasn't been created yet, but a world that we're trying to make together.
The problems we face are great, but history has taught us time and time again that with the right vision, strategy, and solidarity, the 99% can triumph. But it's going to take all of us doing our part.
So that was just some of the interview with Richard Wolff. The full interview will be airing over the next couple days. We get into a lot more with him. So thanks to Richard Wolff and Jay for interviewing him. He is a breath of knowledge and one of a few proud socialists in America that actually know what they're talking about. So always good. I want to remind you, we need your support to do this kind of work. We're going on the ground in less than an hour back in Chicago. We've been on the ground there all week. We have been on the ground covering these protests for 10 months. John, our cameraman, has covered, I believe at this point, over 80 ceasefire protests in New York City, in D.C., in L.A., now in Chicago. Student protests. He's covered protests in the morning. He's covered protests at night. He's been out there at 3 a.m. He's been out there in the cold, the hot, not to mention all the other stories we cover. On the ground in Flint, East Palestine, Atlanta for Cop City, on the picket lines at the UAW strike, Amazon Labor Union. We've been all over this country, and we don't take money from the big banks, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, or the military-industrial complex. We are putting this thing together, scratching quarters. And we need your help. There's a lot of people that ask you for money and then sit in the studio and bloviate out of their assholes. No disrespect, because a lot of them are smart and my friends. But there's very few that are on the ground in the trenches. And it costs money and it takes will. So if you can, support us, statuscoup.com/join. Statuscoup.com/join. Become a member. I'm talking 16 cents a day. There's very few of you who don't have 16 cents a day. That equals $5 a month. That's all I'm asking. What do you spend $5 on a day, a week? Is some of those expenses stuff you don't absolutely urgently need? Ask yourself, what is actual living, breathing, independent journalism worth to you? Support us, statuscoup.com/join. I'll shout you out as you sign up while we're live. Let's talk about living, breathing help with putting on shows like this. Happy to say that we got a big boost to spruce this up, make this production a lot more visually appealing by We and Goliath. We and Goliath, who is a great digital event marketing company, digital events company. They have been helping us for weeks now, helping us put this together. Let's take a quick look at their work. They've done amazing work, and I have dealt with a lot of corporations and a lot of companies who tell you deliverables and feed you a lot of bullshit. They are not one of them. They've done great work and a bit of breath of fresh air. Real quick, I want to talk to one of the co-founders of We and Goliath, Daniel Moss is joining me. Daniel, you have helped out with this. Tell people, because the name is pretty badass, but tell people what is your company, and if they need the services, what kind of work do you do?
Thanks, Jordan. It's an honor to support y'all. We're all about helping good causes increase their reach through virtual events. And yeah, so we've been AFL-CIO, International Labor Organization, many more. Basically, virtual events have a lot of benefits, but they're not easy, right? It takes a lot behind the scenes. So we're here to help them make them bigger, better, more beautiful, more interactive. Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Absolutely. And tell people, because what kind of events can you put on? You mentioned conferences, things like that. But for regular, working class people watching, what kind of stuff do you put on?
Yeah, conferences, fundraisers, webinars, workshops, all sorts of events that have a national audience. One fun example recently, we had the honor of helping this group CodePath put on the largest job fair for Gen Z talent. And we helped them win People's Choice Virtual Event of the Year, which was a pretty awesome thing. And they beat Google in the finals. So that was a virtual job fair. Yeah, mostly conferences, webinars, workshops, all sorts of events.
And I assume they're not for Goldman Sachs. You're doing these things for actual living, breathing,
Absolutely.
good people.
We're all about, social justice, environmental, economic justice, events that are making an impact. We want to help them make it better, bigger. And it's been that's what we're all about.
Absolutely. Awesome. And thank you, because I know your power's out and you're on battery right now. So thank you for sticking with us. And thank you for your help with this. We'll definitely talk soon.
For sure. You're awesome. Great to be supporting y'all. Thanks, everybody. Keep spreading the word and supporting Status Coup. Peace.
Absolutely. And real quick, before our next guest, I want to give you an update, because the DNC is in progress right now, but the main primetime show will be starting soon. The UAW, the United Auto Workers, put out a tweet recently, or a statement, basically calling for the Democratic Party to allow a pro-Palestinian voice on the stage. Quote, "If we want the war in Gaza to end, we can't put our heads in the sand or ignore the voices of the Palestinian Americans in the Democratic Party. If we want peace, if we want real democracy, and if we want to win the election, the Democratic Party must allow a Palestinian American speaker to be heard from the DNC stage tonight." My guess is that was a shot across the bow, because the Democratic Party is going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming to put a Palestinian voice on the stage tonight, because the donors are running the show. That's basically how this works. And the donors don't want a Palestinian voice on the stage. So by the UAW, first off, a speaker is nice, but we need an end to this. A speaker is just That's just by default should happen. But kudos to the UAW for doing that. I'm pretty sure the DNC will buckle now that the UAW and they are trying to appease labor spoke out on that. Speaking of labor, I'm really happy. Let's bring in Antonio, a member of the Teamsters. Antonio is in the Teamsters Amazon division. And Antonio, let me make sure, Antonio, this rundown, hold on. Antonio Rosario. And it's actually awesome that I have you on today because we got big breaking news this morning. The National Labor Relations Board, finally, there is a God. Amazon has been refusing to basically treat delivery drivers as employees forever. They get away with using them as contractors, and they abuse them just like they're actual workers in the warehouse. But the NLRB made an important ruling this morning about that. Can you kind of tell us what they ruled?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show. We always appreciate having a platform to speak to workers and people out there that are interested in all the work that labor is doing. And honestly, you're right. You know, it's been a long time waiting, but the NLRB finally came through. They came up with a good, strong ruling. Amazon workers are considered Amazon employees. I mean, let's face it, they drive their vehicles, they wear their colors, they deliver their packages, and they try to pretend that they're not an Amazon worker. I mean, when an Amazon worker saves somebody in the street, it's our company, our Amazon worker did this. But the minute that Amazon worker does something wrong, they're completely, oh, they don't work for us. They're third party. So I think it's time for that to come to an end. There's still some obstacles that have to be gotten through, but right now that is a big ruling for us. Yes, and for the employees.
And you know what? I do a lot of time shitting on the Democratic Party, but I want to be fair. Biden did, I believe, help secure your pensions, the Teamsters.
The Butch-Lewis Act, yes.
Yeah, I should state that. That's obviously big. And Biden, although I think it's a little overblown that he's, Union Joe, at the very least, he stepped out of the way of the UAW strike and let them run the show. I know in the past, Democratic presidents, Democratic politicians have pressured UAW Teamsters to take shitty deals. He let the UAW and Teamsters kind of handle their own negotiations. I think the Democratic Party gives a lot of lip service for labor, but actually they're not exactly running on the PRO Act right now. But what's your thoughts? What is the positive that the Democratic Party doing, and what more do we need?
Well, you definitely mentioned it there. The Butch-Lewis Act was huge for a lot of us. The fact that Biden actually did help with the choosing of a lot of the NLRB people that are in there now did make a difference in a lot of the rulings over the last few years. They've done some good work. The people at the NLRB, I mean, Jennifer and a few of the others have done some great stuff. But we're definitely, I see what you're saying. There is a lot of lip service sometimes, and and you're keeping it real, right? Like, listen, there's a lot of donors, a lot of big billionaire class people still supporting Democrats, and they're gonna vote in their best interest a lot of the times because they have a lot of money in their pockets. But there are some good Democrats out there. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I believe that there are some changes that can be made. But personally, I feel that the working class really has to stand up in order to make that happen. These people need to know that they work for us, and right. When the workers stand up, they'll know.
And I'd love your thoughts, because I'm not, obviously I tell my audience, I'm not telling people not to vote. However, I have pushed over the last 2 years. I really think that we're kind of conditioned to focus on elections and, races because that's kind of, more urgent. But the real action to actually get structural change in this country is labor, even if you're not in a union, to support labor. Because if you haven't noticed, that's where we're actually getting the structural victories. It's not from like the squad or, name your politician. A lot of those politicians are running on X and going in there and folding like paper tigers. But the UAW, I mean, they should have got more, but that's not their fault. It's because of how far down they were. The Teamsters, they should get more, but they just got a pretty strong contract and averted a strike because they leveraged pressure. So I believe people should get involved, not just trying to organize their own unions, but supporting workers, because that's how you're getting, it might not be a higher minimum wage through Congress right now, but through strong labor unions. What's your message to people who feel dejected, are just nauseated by this choice between a corporate Democrat and a wannabe fascist? But, you know, what's your message to people in terms of the mini labor resurgence going on right now?
Well, that's a very loaded question, but
I try not to, but yeah,
it's all good, man. I get it. This is your show, and I'm going to answer as truthfully as I can. The truth is that it's all about labor. I mean, we keep this country moving. Like I said earlier, those folks, they work for us, and it's about time they start seeing that and stop worrying about who's lining their pockets, but worrying about who's actually keeping this economy growing and who's actually keeping this economy moving, which is us, the laborers. And there has been some talk about listen, I was part of the 1997 UPS strike. I was 23 years old, right? 185,000 UPS workers hit the streets, 15 days, the company gave us what we wanted. In 2023, I was way older, and here we are again fighting for more. Now there's going to be another contract and another contract. And where do we go from here? I've heard some talk about a 2028 general strike. So what I'm trying to say is, if these corporations don't start adhering to the demands of the workers, serious things can happen. And we, as workers, as laborers, we have the power to withhold our labor. And when we do, that can cause an economic crisis. Things like that can cripple the economy. And if these people don't start adhering to our demands and start paying attention to the workers, people that are working 2 jobs just to get by, people that can't afford to put food on the table, then they better watch out.
And, you know, I agree with you, and I'd like your thoughts. If you see the flag behind me, it's not for dramatic purposes. I say we live in the United Corporations of America, and it's not really the politicians you have to protest or even hurt. You got to hurt their donors because they're running the system. If you look inside the DNC, I was shocked. Chris Cuomo, of all people, did a little monologue the other day. He had his cameraman point up at the VIP suites atop the DNC and say, these are the people running the show. Do you think the politicians down here are going to regulate the donors up in the boxes paying $500,000 for a VIP suite? So I think that general strike you're talking about, Sean Fain and others has proposed, many different industry sectors trying to line up their contracts to go on strike at the same time. If you hurt the corporations, bottom line, they're going to make a call to their employees, the politicians, and say, you got to start making some concessions to these workers.
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? It's time for them to realize that they have to stop with these guidelines that they like to try to have, or these rulings and legislation to try to weaken us. This is why one of the legislations like the PRO Act is so important, right? Right to work in over 26 states is ridiculous. They're doing this to weaken our unions' treasuries. They're trying to weaken the unions. They're trying to weaken the working class, period. So we have a very strong fight ahead of us. And I wish and I hope that working class Americans, working class people in this country are paying attention to what's happening, because it's time for a real wake-up call. Who really cares about us? Is it the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? Is it neither? Is it maybe time for a working class party? Do we need for workers to really stand up and start taking the reins? What's happening here? I mean, people really have to start to pay attention.
Thank you, Antonio Rosario, and also thank you for that thick New York accent. That really made my day. We gotta, we'll have to talk again because we more than most cover labor issues. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And remember, folks, we got Cornel West coming up shortly, and we in about a half hour are going to be going live too on the ground in Chicago. And please. Glasses coming off. I cannot do this without you. We cannot do this without you. There are a lot of outlets begging you for money, Patreon, whatever. And they're all basically talking about the same things. And they're all basically doing the same videos. And a lot of it's reactionary nonsense. I'm not calling out anyone in specific, but you get the point. We, Status Coup, for 6 years have been on the ground across this country, scratching pennies and quarters together to fund it. We've done GoFundMe. I've put money, my own limited savings out there to be in Flint and other places. So please, if you can, sign up tonight, statuscoup.com/join, and support me, support John out there on the ground. Also, reminder, my new book that is based on 8 years of on-the-ground reporting in Flint, 21 reporting trips I took to Flint. My new book, We the Poisoned, is out. It's all over the country in bookstores. It's also on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's website. Really, it's very difficult to promote a book during an election and conventions. So, you know, the first week was really great. Kind of has tapered off a little bit. So definitely, if you haven't gotten the book yet, this book exposes the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. It makes Watergate look like child's play. We got political payoffs, destruction of evidence, witness tampering, a Wall Street financial scam, and that's just a few of the things I reveal in the book. Erin Brockovich wrote the foreword. It's been praised by Michael Moore, Nina Turner, and many others. So please pick up the book, order it, get it for your friends, spread the word. It doesn't matter if you're a lefty or righty, a libertarian, agnostic. Water doesn't give a shit what you are politically. We all need water. So please support us. And please order the book if you can and spread the word. Here's a quick look at some of what this book is based on. This is the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century.
What do you call a decade of repeated Watergates, repeated times that they're actually trying to, how I feel, kill us off?
None of the facts have been disputed. Erin Brockovich actually said, this is the biggest cover-up you'll ever read.
And 6 months after the water switch, my throat started bothering me. So I went for a biopsy. Long story short, it was aggressive throat cancer.
And justice delayed has been justice denied.
Yeah, the brown water coming out of there. And, you know, in the bathroom.
And the youngest suicide victim, 5 years old. We talk about the effects, the effects of lead. It affects your brain, it affects your mentality.
It's been 8 years, man. It's been 8 fucking years. I can't take it. And if I die because of this, I'm dead. But someone's got to speak it up.
What I can do is, at the very least, expose what was done to these people, the details, the who, what, when, why. Maybe it could help them fight it elsewhere. By the way, true story, poor Colin. I had him up till like 2 a.m. Doing the music on that book trailer. He kept sending different versions. I was like, nah, not quite scary enough, not quite corrupt enough. And then we finally nailed it with that music tune. So thank you to Colin. And shout out to new Status Coup members. Just got a few signups. Evelyn signed up. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but True signed up. And Luminita signed up. So that's 3 new members. Let's get a couple more. I got 2 more interviews to go, and one of them is Cornel West. And Cornel West dropped some tea on some offers that have been made to him this week by top Democrats trying to push him to get the fuck out of the presidential election. How's that for democracy? But before Cornel West, I want to play a quick interview we did. A great investigative, true old school independent journalist, Greg Palast. He's done great work on voter suppression. He's done great work on the real fraud going on. And it's not what Trump and other people, that voter fraud bullshit they say. It's actually Republicans trying to steal elections, and Democrats, by the way, trying to steal elections and primaries. But he's got a new film coming out. Let's take a look, a little bit of my conversation with Greg Palast. Hey there, delighted to be joined by Greg Palast, investigative reporter for The Guardian, New York Times bestseller, including The Best Democracy Money Could Buy. And on September 6th, you'll be releasing another film on the latest attacks to the right to vote called Vigilante Inc., America's new vote suppression hitman. Let me actually play the trailer. It looks actually really incredible, so I'm looking forward to watching it. Here we go.
You're telling me 2,600 miles away, 2 days for an election, that if I want to vote, all I have to do is show up and prove as an American citizen that I have the right to vote again?
Is this an attempt to remove a lot of Democrats, black people from voting to win the election?
I am far from that, sir, and you have crossed the line.
And today to come out and not be able to vote and no one can give you an explanation, like, it's extremely emotional and it bothers me. It bothers me to my core.
Damn, I got to get your trailer guy for Status Coup. For those that don't know, this is not your first rodeo. You did amazing reporting on, efforts by Republicans and Bush to steal the election successfully, by the way, in 2004 against John Kerry at the time. You've done great reporting actually in 2000, as well as more recently in 2020. Trump complained about so-called election fraud against him, but he and Republicans were also then attempting shenanigans. And also you've done great work on cross-check and that kind of voter suppression. Tell us about this film and what is the more recent new tricks you've been finding, because they're talking about democracy on the line in the United Center right now. The Republicans talk about a deep state, but at the end of the day, democracy has kind of been teetering on the line through a lot of what you're finding.
Yeah, Vigilantes, Inc. is the name of my new film. And by the way, if you go to gregpalast.com, you can sign up now to get the film for free on September 13th. And I'm not allowed to release it before September 13. But you go to gregpalast.com and sign up for it to get a free copy of the film. It'll open in Hollywood on September 6th, but public on September in a couple of weeks. So just go to gregpalast.com, you get it for gratis. But Vigilantes, Inc., the reason it's called that is that is the name for the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan incorporated itself in Georgia as Vigilantes, Inc. And right now, what's happening, and you saw in the film, you saw an African-American soldier whose vote was challenged by this vigilante. This is the newest, most dangerous thing that's happening. And according to Mark Elias, who's a great voting rights attorney, who said this is the number one threat that no one's talking about, which is that any person can say, you can't vote. I can say, I can say Barack Obama doesn't really is not an American citizen. He shouldn't be allowed to vote. Now, again, this is not government. These are individuals, self-appointed vote fraud hunters. But here's the problem. It started out in Georgia with 88 challengers, and they are allowed under Georgia law unlimited challenges to the rights of others to cast their ballot. Well, the gentleman you saw saying, I have to prove that I'm an American again, this African-American career military officer, he was assigned to California. And so this vigilante who you saw with the 6-gun, the pearl-handled 6-gun, that's a loaded gun, by the way. He walks around with these 6 guns with pearl handles, a cowboy hat and boots, pretending he's Doc Holliday. Well, you might think he's a joke, but he's no joke. He's a vice chairman of the Republican Party. in Georgia, he challenged 4,000 voters, mostly black soldiers out of Fort Benning in Georgia. So he challenged the rights of 4,000 voters. And so, like, for example, the man you saw, the African-American officer you saw, he was assigned to California after the Russia invaded Ukraine. And they challenged his vote. Well, you know what? Guess what? When you're a soldier and they switch your military base, you don't lose your vote. You don't lose your citizenship. Even if you're a black soldier, you're not supposed to lose your citizenship. So this is all about that. And originally, why do I call it Vigilantes Inc.?
So that was just some of my interview with Greg Palast. We'll be posting the full interview in the coming days and week. A lot of these interviews we've done over the 3 days, there's longer extended interviews. We're going to try to post all of them in full. But if we can't post all of them in full on the YouTube channel, we'll definitely post all of them in full for our paying Status Coup members, which, by the way, just got another new Status Coup member. So thank you to new Status Coup member. Amy just signed up. So that's Amy True. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Evelyn, Luminita, Donna, Kevin, Gerald, Kathleen, and Michelle have signed up so far today. All right. In less than 20 minutes, we will be live on the ground in Chicago. I unfortunately have to tell you, I don't think it's going to be pretty tonight, and I think the cops are going to get ugly. But John Farina will be on the ground there. By the way, there's always the risk, given how this is the United Corporations of America, that John will be arrested doing journalism. So that's why we need your support, too, because he's had a lot of close calls, and we're not independently wealthy for legal defense for our journalists on the ground. So we're doing dangerous work. John's risking himself. A lot of journalists have already been arrested this week. It's possible the cops will get him tonight, even though he's doing nothing wrong. He's doing journalism, but that's the sad state of affairs. Without further ado, happy to introduce Dr. Cornel West. Spoke with him earlier today. He's been in Chicago, obviously running as an independent candidate for president. There's a lot of folks in the corporate wing of the Democratic Party and even some on the progressive wing that want him out of this race. We spoke about that and other things. Let's take a look at my interview with Dr. West. Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Dr. Cornel West, independent candidate for president, has been raising hell in Chicago this week outside the DNC, has had some people approach him too, which we'll get to. But I want to start, to me, the biggest issue right now is what is being hidden inside the DNC. We know there was a sit-in last night by Palestinian Americans, members of the uncommitted movement, because they have basically been shut out. They are not being allowed to have a speaker on the main stage. We know that a family of an Israeli hostage spoke on stage, but that same exposure, that same opportunity to speak was not offered by the DNC or the Harris campaign to a Palestinian American, a doctor who has seen the disaster, the death in Gaza, or the uncommitted movement. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar came out. Let's show that real quick. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar came out to the protesters. Congresswoman Summer Lee came out to the protesters sitting in. AOC FaceTimed.
I think it is critically important for us to send this message of shared humanity, and that the request isn't that large. It's not. It's important to emphasize that this is not even in any way an irrational thing to ask for. It's a basic thing to ask for.
I don't know why she FaceTimed rather than be there, but that's a different story. But could you talk about, for a party talking about freedom, that's a big theme. They don't seem to want to give Palestinian voices any freedom to just share stories and make a case for an immediate ceasefire.
Well, brother, I tell you, though, I salute you, brother, and
I want to push your text, that magnificent work on Flint. There's a direct connection between what you're writing about in Flint and trying to cover up the suffering here in the United States. They won't say a word about Cop City. They won't say a word about mass incarceration. They won't say a word about poverty. 40% of Black and brown children living in poverty, the richest nation in the history of the world. The Democratic Party is revealing itself, even in this moment of frenzy, as just so hypocritical, shot through with so much mendacity that's hiding criminality. And the very fact that you got a genocide going on. You got over 14,000 Palestinian children, let alone innocent men and women, who have been murdered. And they act as if that's normal and natural. They act as if it's business as usual. That is morally bankrupt, my brother. It really is. And we have to call it for what it is. And
I don't know if you saw, but some of the delegates, some of the big party people, as they were walking out of the convention, they walked past the protesters doing the sit-in, and they literally closed their ears and expressed kind of disgust, and just walked right past them.
The blood of these children on your hands. 13 years old. Sama Abudlin.
Say it again. Say it again. Mock them again. Mock the children again. Do it again. Do it again.
18 years old. 15 years old. Yusuf Hassan. 18 years old. Turn around and join the uncommitted delegates in the protest.
It reminds me in some ways of the Democratic Party in the 1930s and 40s. They had these great gatherings, wouldn't say a word about Jim Crow, wouldn't say a word about lynching. The very suffering that was taking place was the very thing that they were holding at arm's length and proceeding as if they were on the road to freedom and liberty and democracy, so that it just more and more rips the veil off of what is operating in the Democratic Party, which is this organized greed and this thoroughgoing indifference. Be they brothers and sisters in Flint, be they on the south side of Chicago who are poor, be they precious Palestinians undergoing genocide. We haven't even got to Haiti and Sudan and Congo yet. We don't have time for a global analysis here. But it's just sad to see both human beings as well as an imperial empire undergoing such corrosion and corruption. You can see a rot at the very center of it. It's the thing that Martin King talked about when he said he was living in such a sick society that talked about how wonderful it's freedom for them dropping bombs on Vietnamese babies, though, brother.
Mm. And tell us about this week, because I reported yesterday that there was some, let's say, higher up folks in the Democratic Party that wanted to have some conversations with you, specifically about getting you to drop out. We know by all reports, RFK Jr. Is about to drop out, possibly endorse Donald Trump. And there were people that approached you asking you to drop out. What were, the offers that they made and your response?
Well, I mean, a number of them reached out and just saying, I need to get on the bandwagon. This is a historic moment, especially a Black moment. Have a Black sister, Asian sister move to the head of an empire undergoing deep spiritual decay and moral decadence and deterioration. And then there's some religious leaders have reached out saying, are you sure that you're building on the legacy of Martin King and the great Rabbi Heschel and Edward Said and others? And I told them, I said, you all just talking to the wrong brother. You can offer resources, a position, or what have you. That's not what I'm all about. That's not the game I play. That's not my conception of what I'm here for, to bear witness and be a witness and try to hold on to some integrity and honesty. Because what has happened, though, brother, I mean, the toxicity in the party is so pervasive that we see the superficial glitz and the blitz, but at the center of it is just money, status, and 62% of fellow citizens living paycheck to paycheck hardly any acknowledgement of it. Wealth inequality, escalating, hardly any acknowledgement of it. Police still brutalizing and murdering, mass incarceration, the largest prison system in the history of the modern world. Can't say a word about it. Homelessness, especially for Black folk, we 12% of the population, got 45% of the homeless. LA is even worse. LA is even worse. So that level of social misery and suffering is hidden and concealed in the same way. Again, I keep coming back to Flint, because Flint in so many ways is a microcosm of it. And people say, well, Brother West, you're helping fascism. Brother West, you're supporting Trump. Please, you don't fight fascism, all of its lies and crimes, with more lies and crimes, and say, I'm the better option. Because sooner or later, the fascism will take over. If you don't get at the roots of it, and Democratic Party policies, we know, with this neoliberal class wars against poor and working people, push people in situations where they're more right to follow gangster fascists like Trump. And if you don't get at their situation, their plight, their predicament, and there's no alternative to a rotting Democratic Party, then fascism, yes, fascism will triumph in the end. And I don't know what Brother RFK Jr. is doing. Good God Almighty. He's bouncing back and forth, making deals. I guess for him, it's all about making deals rather than bearing witness.
And can you specify, if you can, you mentioned offering positions, resources. Were you offered a position in the Harris administration? Any financial incentives to drop out?
Oh, there was definitely various kind of offers. I won't go into concrete details of it. I really won't, because I don't even want to make that the focus.
Well, let's just say they did not offer you the janitor's position. They offered you something relatively high up.
Well, I don't think it was that high up, because believe me, brother, the highest position in the empire, they can't say a word about genocide. For me, it's just a place in Dante's Inferno, man. And that's the lowest litmus test of morality, to oppose genocide. And when you deny genocide, when you actually enable genocide, that cannot be the only option to fascism.
Right. Did they just one more on this? Did they offer you? Did they offer you a cabinet position, a lower position, and offer to pay off any of your campaign debt?
Well, they offered serious substantive conversation about all of those that could lead toward some real possible. You know what I mean?
And it's also interesting because you mentioned those religious leaders invoking Martin Luther King, but maybe they should look up Martin Luther King, because he would have been outside with those protesters, ceasefire protesters, sitting in. He was ardently against Vietnam.
Well, you think that, LBJ actually responded to the Black Freedom Movement with civil rights acts and voting right acts and open housing acts with anti-poverty programs, and areas responding to both trade union movement as well as just left movements as a whole. So those were very significant. So for Martin to break from that particular president, see, that's qualitatively different than breaking from Biden or Harris. Good God Almighty. And you see all the lies that they're telling about Biden. Like he was the greatest president, the most pro-working class president with our excellent economy. And you say, my God, how could anybody credibly make that kind of statement? There was some significant legislation he was able to push through and bipartisan. But in terms of pushing for World War III, in terms of enabling genocide, the architect of a crime against humanity called mass incarceration, Glass-Steagall. We can go on and on and on with Biden. And now people want to put him on Mount Rushmore. You can see the level of lies that the Democratic Party is willing to tell in order to make their grab for power. And if that's all we have, we're in deep trouble, man.
And could you talk about, because obviously you are getting the heat, not just from, establishment Democrats, but even some progressives who are trying to push you, they love you, but They feel you're going to enable Trump, and to them, stopping Trump is more important than ending this neoliberalism. What's the difference for you? Because in 2020, you decided, I'm going to hold my nose, vote for Biden, and encouraged others. But then 4 years later, it's obviously you've made a different calculation. Why now do you feel like Trump is less of a threat? And how do you answer people who challenge you that this is the man talking about, joking about being a dictator, weaponizing the Department of Justice, mass deportations, and you could potentially enable that if a couple thousand votes go to you in Michigan and elsewhere?
Well, one, whatever votes go to me were not necessarily votes that would go to Harris. I mean, that we got to keep that very, very clear. Most of the people who vote for me would never have anything to do with Harris anymore, anything to do with the Democratic Party anymore. What the Democratic Party needs to do is have a Socratic moment, examine itself, and try to shift policies in such a way that they speak to some of the issues that we're talking about. It seems to be structurally unable to do that, given the role of big money and big military, and given the kind of illusions that it lives in. But what I would say is that each and every citizen needs to critically reflect and make their choice and vote. And I make my case. Harris makes a case. Trump makes a case. Stein makes a case. Claudia de la Cruz makes a case. Other socialist parties and libertarian parties make a case, and the citizens vote.
Right.
Making sure they have choices available. That's bottom line.
And, I'm curious what you think, because the Democratic Party, they are, and their media accomplices, in my view, are frantically. It is one of the harder things to do as a journalist, to pull out of an interview with Cornel West, but I don't have a choice because we got to get on the ground in the streets of Chicago ASAP. The march has already started. And like I said, I think tonight is going to be pretty ugly. Unfortunately, I'm hearing riot police are lining up, and John Farina, our cameraman, is on the ground. He tells me by his eyesight, there's about 600 to 700 protesters out there, and the crowd is getting larger. So before we go to John, I want to give shout outs to everyone who helped out with these last 3 days. Jay producing it. Amzai behind the scenes helped out a great deal. Thank you, Amzai. Colin, poor Colin. I've kept up quite a bit over the years. Also want to thank all the guests. And I want to give shout outs to people who have signed up today. We didn't hit our goal, but there's still time. And we're going to be, like I said, we want to be able to post as many of these interviews as possible. So the more members that signed up, but the more people that sign up, the easier it will be to post these full interviews, these interviews in full. Shout out to Nancy, just signed up as a Status Coup member. Crystal, Amy, True, Evelyn, Luminita, Donna, Kevin, Gerald, Kathleen, Michelle, and Kelly signed up during these last 2 hours. So thank you. All I ask to those of you watching, obviously, if it's not in your budget, I understand. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But if it is in your budget, we're asking something very simple, but something extremely powerful. 16 cents a day could actually create living, breathing journalism. You might say, what is $5 a month? That's what 16 cents a day. What's my $5 a month going to do? The more $5 bills that we could stack up that come in consistently, we don't have to worry about funding. We have stable funding coming in, so we could get on the ground to cover protests, so we could get on the ground to do the economic reporting trips. We did economic reporting trips every year of COVID, talking to poor people, homeless people, people suffering from inflation. We've been on the picket lines. We covered the first 3 weeks of the United Auto Workers strike. You know how expensive it is to be on the ground for 3 weeks, but we were able to do it because people were signing up as paid members. So it's actually possible to create the media that we need and deserve in this country, not the propaganda and corporate bullshit you see on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, New York Times, Washington Post. But we need you to do it. We need you to do it. So please support us. Statuscoup.com/join. I am not beyond begging, but I will never apologize, and I will never have shame to beg working people rather than beg the sugar daddies and sugar mommies funding the Democratic and Republican Party. So please, please support us. Apologies that Crystal Ball and Ryan Grimm couldn't make it on these last 3 days. There were flight issues, technical problems, all the rest. There were also a few guests that were not able to fit in. We interviewed, but we didn't make it into these 3 days. So we're going to air it other days, including Jennifer Flynn Walker with the Center for Popular Democracy. And a couple others. So we got great interviews. These full interviews will be posted as the days go on. But please, please support us. And here we go to Chicago to our on-the-ground coverage. If you're watching right now on this live stream, you don't have to do anything. This feed will go right into our protest feed with John Farina. Thank you and have a great night. Stay tuned.